Hey, parents, if you're here, it probably means you're trying to figure out how to help your kid really thrive, especially if they're dealing with learning challenges, like dyslexia or dyscalculia, maybe ADHD. We're going to do a deep dive today into some pretty surprising connections between your child's physical development and how well they can learn.
Right.
And we're not talking about like the usual tutoring or study skills here.
Yeah.
Get ready for a totally different perspective.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at how things like how strong their core is and their coordination, even mindfulness, can make a real difference in how well they do in school.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that we tend to think of learning as something that only happens in the brain.
Right.
But the truth is, our brains and bodies are totally connected.
Yeah.
And how healthy and strong a child's body is can have a huge impact on how well they think and learn.
Okay, so let's start with something that I think a lot of parents can relate to.
Okay.
The core.
Yeah.
We hear about core strength all the time, but what does that even mean?
Right.
And how does it connect to learning?
You're right. The core is usually just simplified to like having a six-pack.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that.
Right.
It's this whole network of muscles that supports the trunk.
Okay.
From the abdomen to the back. And all these muscles have to work together to keep your kids stable, help them with their posture. And believe it or not, they can even affect how their brain works.
So we're talking way more than just sit-ups then, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what muscles exactly are we talking about?
Well, think about the muscles that let your kids stand up straight, twist and bend.
Okay.
We're talking about the back extensors that go all along the spine and the obliques on the sides and even deeper muscles you don't really see.
Okay.
Like the transverse abdominis, it's like an internal corset.
Wow.
Yeah, these muscles are super important for how your child moves and interacts with everything around them.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But how does a strong core actually help a child who's struggling to learn?
Well, there's this really cool connection between the core and the cerebellum.
The cerebellum.
Yeah, it's a part of the brain that's super important for coordination, movement, and posture.
Okay.
When we strengthen the core, especially those deep stabilizing muscles, we're basically sending signals to the cerebellum that help it work better.
So it's like cross-training for the brain.
Exactly.
But you're using your body as the gym.
That's a great way to put it.
Cool.
A strong core helps the brain understand where the body is in space, which can improve balance coordination and even reduce anxiety.
Oh, wow.
And when a kid feels physically stable and grounded, it creates a much calmer, more focused environment for them to learn in.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you're always feeling off balance or can't sit still, it's got to be hard to concentrate on anything else.
Exactly. And think about something like reading. Holding good posture while you're reading actually takes core strength. When a kid slouches, they're not just hurting their back. They're also making it harder for their lungs to work properly and reducing blood flow to the brain.
So it's not just about being comfy.
Right.
It's about their brain having the best possible conditions to learn.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be extra important for kids who are already struggling to read or stay focused.
Yeah, absolutely. Building core strength can give them a much stronger base for all those important thinking skills. And there's actual research to back this up.
Really?
There have been studies showing a connection between how strong a kid's core is and how fast they can read.
Interesting.
So kids with stronger cores might be able to process information more quickly.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It really shows how things that seem totally separate can actually affect each other. So how can parents start building core strength into their kids' routine?
Well, there are tons of fun ways to do it.
Okay.
Think beyond those typical sit-ups and crunches. Things like yoga, martial arts, swimming, even just playing on a jungle gym can work those core muscles.
I love that you mentioned yoga and martial arts.
Yeah.
Those seem to go beyond just getting stronger physically.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
Yoga and martial arts really emphasize mindfulness and control over your movements. They can help kids learn about their bodies, get better at coordination, and learn how to control their breathing.
That leads us to another important part of this.
Right.
Mindfulness.
Yeah.
How does that fit in with all of this?
Mindfulness is all about being present in the moment and aware of your thoughts, your feelings, and what's going on in your body
Okay.
without judging any of it. And when we're talking about learning, mindfulness practices can be super helpful for managing stress and improving focus.
So you're saying a calmer, more centered kid learns better?
Exactly.
It makes sense, but is there research that proves that?
Oh yeah, there is.
Okay.
Studies show that mindfulness-based things like yoga and meditation can actually physically change the brain. These practices can reduce activity in the amygdala.
The amygdala.
Yeah, that's the part of the brain that controls fear and stress responses.
Okay.
And they boost activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is really important for executive function and attention.
So mindfulness isn't just like some new age thing.
Right.
It's actually rewiring the brain for better learning.
Exactly. It's all starting to connect, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. And remember, we're looking at a holistic approach here. A strong core helps with physical stability and how well the brain works.
Right.
Which then makes it easier to do mindfulness practices.
Yeah.
Which then reduces stress and improves focus even more.
Wow.
It's like this amazing cycle for learning.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about the core and mindfulness. And I'm already feeling like I want to get my kids moving and doing some deep breathing exercises.
Yeah.
But there's another piece to all of this that we haven't talked about yet.
Right.
Proprioception.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is?
Sure.
And why it's so important for learning?
Proprioception is basically how your body knows where it is in space. It's like that sixth sense that helps you move around smoothly without always having to look at your arms and legs.
Okay.
It's what tells you how much strength to use when you pick up a pencil or how to keep your balance when you're walking on something uneven.
So it's like an internal GPS for your body.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Cool.
And just like a GPS helps you find your way around, proprioception helps your child move around and use objects without any problems.
So how does this relate to learning challenges?
Okay.
I'm having trouble picturing the connection between, say, being clumsy and having trouble reading.
Well, think about everything that's involved in reading.
Good.
You need to be able to move your eyes in a very precise way, hold your head steady, and have good control of your fingers to turn the pages.
Yeah.
And all of these things depend on good proprioception.
Oh, I see. So if your body's always misjudging its position, it's going to be tough to coordinate all those little movements you need for reading.
Exactly. And there's research that shows that kids who don't have good proprioception often have a hard time doing things like writing, copying stuff off the board, and even just paying attention in class.
Wow.
They might fidget, bump into things, or have trouble sitting still.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're trying to be disruptive.
Right.
It's because their body is literally struggling to figure out where it is.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to think that those behaviors are just bad or that the kid isn't trying hard enough, when actually there might be a sensory issue going on.
Exactly. And that's why understanding proprioception is so important for parents and teachers.
Yeah.
If we can spot those signs and help kids with those underlying sensory needs, we can create a much better learning environment for them.
Okay. So let's say a parent notices these signs in their kid.
Okay.
What can they do to help improve their proprioception? Are there specific exercises or activities that can help?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like with building core strength, there are a lot of fun ways to boost proprioception.
Okay.
Look for activities that give deep pressure and resistance,
Like what?
like climbing, jumping on a trampoline, or playing with Play-Doh.
Okay.
Even something as simple as giving your kid a big hug can stimulate those proprioceptive receptors.
So roughhousing is actually good for their development.
Yeah, within reason, of course.
Okay, good. My kids are going to love hearing that.
But yeah, playful activities that challenge their balance and coordination are amazing for strengthening those proprioceptive pathways.
And I bet those activities can also help with coordination,
Right.
which is something else you mentioned before.
You're exactly right. Coordination is all about how well different muscle groups work together. It's what allows us to do complex movements,
Like what?
like riding a bike, playing a musical instrument, or even just writing neatly.
And just like proprioception coordination seems like something we don't really think about until we see a kid struggling with it.
Exactly. And just like with proprioception, there's more and more research showing a link between poor coordination and problems with academic skills.
Boy.
Kids who struggle with coordination might have trouble holding a pencil the right way, forming letters, or keeping up with the speed of writing in class.
So it's not just about being physically clumsy.
Right.
It can actually make it harder for them to learn and express themselves in school.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to help them early on.
Yeah.
By addressing those coordination challenges early. We can help kids develop those fundamental motor skills they need for learning and just everyday life.
And I imagine that yoga and martial arts can be really helpful here too,
Right.
since they're all about controlled movements and being aware of your body.
You're exactly right. Those activities can be super beneficial for developing both coordination and proprioception, while also promoting mindfulness and stress reduction.
Speaking of stress reduction,
Yes.
I think that brings us back to the topic of mindfulness. We talked earlier about how mindfulness can help with focus and attention.
Right.
Can you talk a little more about how stress actually affects a child's ability to learn?
When we're stressed, our bodies go into that fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
releasing all these hormones like cortisol and adrenaline,
Right.
which is good in short bursts when we need to deal with danger.
Uh,
But when we're stressed all the time, it keeps our bodies on high alert.
okay.
And that can really hurt learning.
So it's like their brain is too busy freaking out to focus on anything else.
Exactly. When a kid is stressed, their working memory gets worse.
Mm.
It's harder to process information.
Mm.
And executive function skills like planning and organization take a hit.
So it's not just about feeling anxious or overwhelmed.
No,
Stress is actually messing with the brain's ability to work properly.
that's right. And for kids who are already having trouble learning,
Yeah.
constant stress can make those problems even worse.
Right.
And it creates this awful cycle.
So finding ways to manage stress is really important,
It is.
not just for how they feel emotionally,
Yeah,
but for their brain health too.
absolutely.
And you mentioned earlier that things like yoga and meditation can help with this.
Yes, they can be really powerful for calming down the nervous system
Okay.
and promoting a sense of calm and focus.
Mhm.
They teach kids how to pay attention to their bodies, notice their thoughts and feelings without judging them,
Right.
and learn ways to handle stress.
So it's not just about relaxing.
Right.
It's about giving them tools to deal with all the ups and downs of life.
Exactly. And the great thing about mindfulness is that you can do it anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
You don't need any special equipment or a lot of time.
Right.
You can practice mindful breathing with your kid while you're waiting in line,
Okay.
do a short guided meditation before bed,
Hmm.
or even just encourage them to pay attention to how their body feels while they're eating.
So it's about being aware and present even when things are crazy.
Exactly. And the more you practice mindfulness together,
Yeah.
the more natural it becomes for your family,
Yeah.
creating a calmer, more centered environment for everyone.
That sounds like a win-win.
It is.
I'm definitely feeling more and more convinced that these simple practices can really help kids learn better.
They can. And remember, it's not just about doing individual exercises.
Right.
It's about creating a supportive environment where kids feel safe, understood, and ready to learn.
Exactly. We've really covered a lot in this deep dive, looking at all the connections between physical development and mindfulness and how well a child can learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the biggest things I've realized is that it's not just about fixing specific problems.
Right.
It's about building an environment where kids can really thrive.
Yeah, that's such a key point. It's about moving away from just fixing things and focusing more on building up their strengths
Right.
and looking at learning in a way that helps the whole child.
And I think that starts by understanding that each kid is different.
Definitely.
There's no magic solution when it comes to learning challenges.
Absolutely. What works for one child might not work for another.
Right.
And it's super important to be flexible, to try different things and be open to different approaches.
So it's like being a detective.
Yeah.
You have to really watch your child, listen to what they need, and figure out what works best for them.
Exactly. And that means working closely with teachers, therapists, and other professionals.
Yeah.
They can give you guidance and support.
Yeah.
It's all about teamwork, everyone working together to help the child succeed.
And I think one of the most important things parents can do is be patient
Yes.
and celebrate all those little wins.
That's so important. Learning takes time,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't always move in a straight line.
Right.
There will be bumps in the road and setbacks along the way.
But every step forward, even a tiny one, is a reason to celebrate.
Absolutely. It's about focusing on progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And it's about truly believing in your child's potential, even when they might be doubting themselves.
Yeah, that's one of the most powerful things a parent can do. Be their biggest cheerleader, their constant source of support and encouragement.
Children need to know that they are loved and accepted for who they are,
Right.
no matter how well they do in school.
It's about separating their worth from their performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are not their learning challenges.
Right.
They're so much more than that.
That's beautifully said. And when you help them feel good about themselves and like they belong, you create a strong foundation for them to be resilient and grow.
And I think that's a really powerful message to wrap things up with.
Yeah.
This isn't just about school and grades. It's about supporting the whole child, physically, emotionally, mentally.
Yeah.
It's about creating a place where they can thrive and become the best versions of themselves.
And remember, parents, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
There are resources out there, support groups and professionals who can help you on this journey.
We've just scratched the surface of this topic, but I hope this deep dive has given you some new ideas and encouraged you to learn more. And like always, we'll have links to some helpful resources in the show notes.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world around us.